Good evening. I'm Wesley Jones III, and you are watching D6 Mafia's review of The Duke. The Duke is a strategy game for two players that is clearly taken its inspiration from chess. We've got a game board here and we're going to show you how to set it up and then we're going to jump right into it. So just like chess, you've got a main piece. In this case, it is the Duke. And the object of the game is to capture the enemy player's Duke, essentially checkmating it. So the Duke, once a player is chosen to place first, they may place their Duke in any one of the two middle squares. After they've chosen, then they will take two footman tiles and they must be placed adjacent to the Duke. Those can be in any kind of configuration. As you can see, we have this side set up in a line. We're going to set up our side here in a little L configuration. So now you're ready to play. So on each player's turn, they can take one of two actions. They can either move a unit or place a new unit. So first of all, we're gonna place a unit. So to place a unit, you would reach into your bag here and you pull out a unit. We pull out the priest and you place it in any square directly adjacent to the Duke on the long side. So our only legal placement is here next to the Duke. Next we have unit movement. Now, units have a variety of movements, and very conveniently, they're printed right on top of the unit's tiles. So you can kind of see what options your opposing player has and what options you have to maneuver your units. This is sort of where it starts to deviate from basic chess, because you've got a whole bunch of units with a whole bunch of different movement styles. And it gives a lot of variation to the game. So let's take a look at the handy and dandy movement card that the game provides. So we're just going to go over the basic movements, although there were 8 total on the card. So the most basic of basic movements is the move. You can see here the footman. That is their basic movement. Essentially, the unit is just moving from one square to another. In the case of the footman, they can either move forward, backward, or side to side one square. If an enemy unit is in one of those squares, they may capture it. The next is jump, which is a little more advanced. That allows a unit to hop over another unit, whether it be an enemy or friendly unit, as part of their movement. Next is slide. Now, slide is a lot like a rook or a bishop in regular chess. You can see here the priest has the slide movement. A slide essentially allows the unit to go as far as it can along the board, either diagonally, forward, back, side to side, until it is interrupted by a unit, be it friendly or enemy. Using the priest as an example, the priest's only legal movement at its current placement is to move diagonally over to this space. Next is the slide jump, a much more deadly version of slide. This allows a unit to hop over another unit as part of its slide. So say if the priest, for example, had slide jump, it would be able to hop the footman as part of its diagonal movement. Next is command. Now, command is a pretty advanced move. Command basically allows the unit with the ability to move another unit that occupies one of the command squares to a different command square shown on its card. The last one we're going to go over is strike. Now, strike is an ability that tends to be on archer cards, bowmen, longbowmen, or pikemen. And the unit doesn't move, it stays in its same spot, but may capture another unit that is on one of the tiles shown with the strike icon. So now that you know kind of the basic movements, we're going to go over some pieces that actually have those movements and how pieces move. So since we already have the footman and the priest on the board, we're going to talk about them. So when you move a unit, such as this footman, you place it in one of the squares that is shown on the top of the tile. Once it is placed, the unit then flips. This is really interesting and kind of really removes this game from sort of the realm of chess, in that units' moves now change as soon as they're flipped. You can see here the footman now, instead of going side to side or forward and back, now moves diagonally, or may even move 2 squares forward on its next move. The priest has a slide movement, as we saw before. So after it makes its slide movement, you flip it over, and it now may move diagonally, or may even jump up to 2 squares diagonally. This is really interesting because the priest is essentially, the bishop from chess, and they've sort of maintained that diagonal movement inspired by the bishop. But we have a few other pieces set aside, and we're just going to talk about them because they have a variety of interesting moves. So first is the bowman. So the bowman has the strike ability. You can see it here. This is actually on its opposite side. Every unit has a starting side and a flip side. So the starting side is sort of the blacked out side you can see here on the priest and the footman. And then the bowman here, you can see it's sort of, the unit is cleared out and it's dark around it, signifying that's its flip side. So on the bowman's flip side, he has a couple of strike squares, which would threaten these 3 here. Once the bowman, if the bowman chooses to fire and capture a unit on those squares, it then flips. And you can see on the other side, it does not have any strike tiles, sort of signifying, maybe the bowman's reloading. One of the really neat things about this game is that the designers did a really excellent job of sort of combining flavor of a unit, what its type is and what it can do, and how it would operate on a battlefield. So the next one is the wizard. So the wizard's starting side, you can see is pretty deadly. The wizard can hit any unit anywhere around it with a movement. But then as you move it and it flips, now it gains a very wide jump movement thing all the way around it, to sort of signify maybe the wizard's throwing some spells out, maybe teleporting around the battlefield, blowing up units. The wizard is definitely one of the deadliest units. Next, we're going to talk about another one of the very powerful units, the assassin. So the assassin is another one of those really great flavor tiles. You can see it has the jump slide, which is arguably one of the better abilities. It starts off going diagonally backwards, either left or right, and then also sliding directly forward. Then as it flips, its movement is completely the opposite. I can move diagonally forward, left or right, or straight back in a slide jump maneuver, sort of signifying maybe your assassin kind of slides into battle, killing a unit, and then can, backflip out, get out of harm's way. Last one we're going to talk about is the general. Now you can see the general here on his flip side. He's got the command tiles here. He's really good kind of in the middle of the field. You can see that, if he's kind of in front of units and he takes command, he can move units out and kind of create a line, maybe in the center or towards your enemy's side of the field, making him, very deadly along that line. But as soon as he gives his orders, he flips back to a starting side and he loses the command ability, but he still maintains a pretty interesting configuration of movement with between move and a couple of jump spaces. So that basically covers the movement and the tile placement in the game, and that's really all there is to the Duke. At least the basic game. Now there are some variations that they provide. There are a couple of flag tiles for a capture the flag version. There are terrain tiles which can be placed on the board to add some obstacles. One of our favorite variations is the dragon tile. The dragon kind of has a little more advanced rules, which we're not going to go over today. But suffice it to say, he's kind of an NPC that roams around the board and creates danger zones that your unit's going to have to stay out of. And players may even take control of him for a turn and with the possibility of unleashing him, enraging him on their opponent's side of the board and maybe causing quite a bit of damage. Sort of the last thing we want to highlight, and we think this is really great that they include this in the game, are a couple of blank tiles. And they also include with that a sticker sheet so that you can come up with your own style of unit with its own name. Maybe you want to make a necromancer, any kooky thing you want to come up with and give it a set of movement so that it makes your game experience unique because you have your own unit. So what do we think? The game, from a development standpoint, is absolutely a 10 out of 10. The design is unbelievably great. They really capture the strategy element of a chess or Stratego type game, but with way more interesting elements with your various units. All the different movements and how they change when you flip. You really have to think ahead. And in fact, the more units you kind of memorize, maybe the better you'll do, because you can kind of, okay, my opponent's units will do this movement when they flip, so I can kind of plan around that. One of the rules I should point out is that you can kind of look at your own tiles, you can pick them up and check out the back to kind of see, okay, once I move this unit, what are my options? But you may not do that with your opponent's pieces. So it kind of helps to know what danger zones you might be moving into once, if their units move up and then flip. Really, my only complaint, and there's been a bit of a disagreement here at D6 Mafia whether or not this is a bad thing or a good thing about this game, is the random drawing of units from the bag. Having been a chess champion in junior high, I really like the high strategy of this type of game. And so when you reach randomly into the bag and pull out a unit, you're adding this element of luck into the game, and it makes it diminishes the strategy somewhat. We've seen games between different players where one player right off the bat will pull an assassin or a priest, something pretty powerful, and just start wrecking house with the board and follow that up with another powerful piece, while the opposite player is a footman, pikeman, just not pulling anything to help them, and it's everything they can do just to try to keep units on the board, which keep getting eliminated by these more powerful pieces. I personally don't care for that element as much. However, I'm in the minority amongst our group. The element it does add is that you can win by skill and lose by luck, so that even maybe a less skilled player still has a chance. I mean, there is something to be said about, you're backed into a corner and you reach into that bag and you pull out that one piece that you needed, and it completely changes the game in your favor, or at least gives you a fighting chance. There certainly is the creation of moments like that are certainly important in any game. It's a kind of a fine balance between how much luck you want involved in a game, whereas chess has no luck. This game may have the right balance of luck to strategy. So, well, I think that about wraps up our review of the Duke. I'm Russ with D6 Mafia. Thanks for watching.